Retro Hangover, supported via Patreon by listeners like you. We would especially like to thank patrons Lyle McCarnes, Ashton Ruby, Randall Quiggle, Tony G, Stud Still Smash the Milkman, Raging Demon, Katie Quigg, JC, Megan Garuso, Mast Keaton, Andrew Liguori, Ozzy Garcia, The Retro Vixen, Adam from The Good, the Bad, and the Backlog, Lunchbox, aka The Disgruntled Gamer, Dischimera, Jenny E, Rick Firestone, Parallax Puddles, Soha, Dave Jackson, Matt, aka Stormageddon, Retro Overdrive, B. Ross and Van Fernal from Super Garbage Day, Keith Gasper, Eric Guess, Nomad from the Retro Wildlands Podcast, Ash Event, Alan Bingham, Ryan Player One, Mike the Ref from Backbreaker Gaming, Darth Emick, Low5 Alex, Alt, and Renner Dreaming. Your continued engagement and generous donations are deeply appreciated.
As such, would be goddamn. Yeah, this is going really well. This is good. Did I mention that I took NyQuil before we started recording?
Sweet.
All right. Anyway,
So you have to deal with NyQuil and my writing.
woo! Open your ears and crack some beers. You are listening to the most recent episode of Retro Hangover.
And hello, retro and classic gamers. Welcome to the podcast where we analyze apes' ages anally adjusting artificial altimeters. This is Retro Hangover. I am your co-host, Chris Copleen, with, as always, your host, Shane. Barrel full of dick Kasky.
You know, I am impressed. For a minute there, I thought you weren't going to be able to pull off the signature scream this time. What with the being down with the sickness and all, but you did it.
If we had recorded this yesterday or the day before, it would have been absolutely disgusting. But I thought I'd give it my best. I'm feeling kind of dizzy now, though. But
It's all right. It's worth it. Do it for the content.
yes, is that? Would you say it's content?
Ooh, I would not actually.
Because it's April.
Yeah.
We're monkeying around.
I feel like we didn't even like mention that in the last episode, did we? Like that was our whole shtick, was we were like, oh, it's gonna be April, and then we never actually said it.
We did say it.
I don't remember that.
I said it a couple times.
I
know you don't listen to me.
probably
but
tuned
it's
it
fine.
out. Yeah.
More than likely. We are here to talk about a game that you love and is perfect because you love, I'm sure. That game is called Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest, as in conquest. Yeah. And the all-time Super Nintendo classic that I keep hearing is the greatest 2D platformer for the system, maybe, perhaps of all time. Right, Shane?
Allegedly.
Oh, I guess we're going to find out on today's show. But before we do that, we are going to be talking about the games that we have been playing. So, Shane, what have you been playing lately?
One of these days, I am going to have a different answer to this question.
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
It's not going to be today, though. That's for sure. Because time is elusive. It's an illusion, as a certain doctor would say. It's wibbly wobbly, perhaps even timey wimey. And I never feel like I have quite enough of it. And I've heard tell that continues to just that issue gets exacerbated as you get older. So I would just imagine that eventually I'm just going to be hurtling towards the grave. But yeah, I don't know, man. I haven't really had a whole lot of time to do much other than experience this game for the episode today, and just trying to plink away at the few time wasters that I have on my phone. So that's really kind of it. I mean, I guess if I want to keep things exciting, I could, mention the stuff that I played on stream, because that is a thing that I did in fact play. So there's that. Shameless plug for our Twitch streams on Sundays. But most recently, unfortunately, when Chris was not feeling well and could not join me, I decided to jump in and play a little anime bullet hell game. I feel like I'm going to pronounce this wrong. You can probably correct me on this, and I know some members of our community will definitely correct me. But is it Tauhou? Is it Tuhu? How do you pronounce that?
Toho.
Toho? Is it Toho? Okay.
Toho.
There you go. Toho Ice Fairy something or other. Anyway, it's hard as shit. It is a very challenging bullet hell game. I liken it to something like Cuphead, because it's not like your traditional sort of like fucking, I don't know, Life Force or Galaga or whatever, where like you have waves of enemies or anything like that. It's just a boss rush. So this game is structured such that it's a surprising amount of dialogue for a bullet hell game. I would argue maybe too much, with boss fights in between the dialogue sections. And that's pretty much the whole game. And yeah, those boss fights are pretty rough. Like it ramps up pretty quickly. Like the first couple, I was like, yeah, all right. And I got them mostly on the first try. And then towards the end of the stream, I want to say I was at like the fifth boss encounter, fifth or sixth maybe. And that you should go watch the VOD that's on the YouTube channel that we have, because man, it was rough. But that's really it. I meant to play a horror game actually, but at the last minute before we started to go live, I found out that the game has a serious, completely game-breaking bug that refuses to allow the game to start unless you change a Windows environment variable and reboot your machine. So that's cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So
it's free though.
Maybe I'll try to play that on a stream later, because apparently it's really good. But yeah, that's kind of it for me, man. I don't know, nothing too crazy. I don't know. What about you? You got any time to get some gaming in?
Not much, because I've been dead for most of the past couple of weeks, and I've been recording like a monster. So you're going to hear all sorts of me if you like to listen to our friends, and you should. And those two friends are going to be the Still Loading podcast. I am going to be on 2 of Josh Koval's upcoming shows. One is his special anniversary show, which I definitely encourage you to go check out. I'm not going to give the bag away on that one. Just go listen to that show. It's going to be great. And the other one is I'm on a show talking about I think I mentioned this last episode. It's called Grand Soul Story. I just beat that. I'm looking forward to talking about it. It is an indie game, as I said last time, developed by one person. And yeah, it's all done now. And it's interesting. I'm going to get into that. Just to too long, don't listen, but I want you to listen, because friend of the show, of course, over there at Still Loading Podcast. I just tip my cap off to the person that made it, but it's a nice virgin effort. It has a lot of imperfections, but solid effort overall. So yeah, definitely look forward to tearing that one down and building it up. Also been recording with Rick from Pixel Project Radio. So Xenosaga should be coming soon. I know that we recorded the first episode. It's fantastic. Look forward to recording the second here soon as well. And God, I'm going to be recording also with Pixel Project Radio, Final Fantasy 13 with friend of the show, Cottage. I am just a busy man. So I guess I've been playing recording, if that's a game. I don't know. I mean, there's points and it's called analytics, I guess. I'm not going to disclose those, but yeah, I guess that's fun. Oh, and I finally played a stall prior to getting on this recording tonight. I'm at the final boss. It's actually paused right behind me. He's a motherfucker. I had to turn on infinite lives because the American version of this game is a bitch, because they decided to give you 1 continue, 2 less health meter bars. So you get 3 hits in the American version as opposed to 5 in the Japanese version. In the Japanese version, you also have unlimited continues. So you have 1 continue and 3 hits in the American version. So I had to turn on infinite lives because fuck you, Sega. But it's a gorgeous, gorgeous game. I cannot look forward to talking about this game enough. Coming up on IO Saturnalia, which is coming out on May 11th over on our Patreon, along with the King of Games, which is already there, which is almost on the main feed. So if you want to binge that, just head on over to Patreon. Give that a little look, because you can listen to all of the King of Games pretty much by now for as little as $1 a month. IO Saturnalia is going to be at the 16-bit tier, but yeah, King of Games 96 is for you. I just felt like I did a lot of shilling, and I'm very tired now. Can I go take a nap?
I mean, sure. I mean, I got to read this brief history, so you can get a snooze. Sure, why not?
I'm gonna crumple into a ball in the corner because that was a lot of talking, and I think I'm on fire. So, Shane.
Yes.
Oh, this is we're kicking this off in style. We have a game to talk about today, and that is Donkey Kong Country 2. I was about to say 94 again. Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Kong Quest for the Super Nintendo. And as all games do, except when they don't, this game has a brief history. And as we are wont to do, we read the brief history for our listeners. So Shane, would you please give us the brief history of Donkey Kong 2, Diddy's Kong Quest?
Have a massive commercial success on your hands, you know there will be no monkeying around when it comes to making a sequel. Such was the case for Rare with the smash Super Nintendo hit Donkey Kong Country. Rare, being at the top of their creative game at this point, decided that with a sequel, they would want to introduce new concepts, challenges, and characters. And such would be the case for DKC's follow-up, Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Kong Quest. Development for the game would start right after the release of Donkey Kong Country. Most of the original team would return, to include Tim Stamper as director, Greg Mayles on design, Chris Sutherland on programming, and David Weiss on music composition. They would also retain the game's signature look by using Silicon Graphics' advanced computer modeling that allowed taking 3D pre-rendered models and transforming them into 2D sprites. There would be some gameplay alterations, however, some minor and some major. For starters, Rare set out to make the game more difficult than its predecessor. This was because they had received feedback from some players that stated that they felt the original Donkey Kong Country was just too easy. Secondly, they wanted the game to feel less linear and more natural, so they designed their levels to encourage more exploration and branching paths, and rewarding the player with various collectibles that would help them get more goodies as the game went on. Lastly, and most importantly, they removed the ability to play as the game's titular protagonist, Donkey Kong. Instead, players would take control of Diddy Kong and his new partner, Dixie. The reason they got rid of DK was because, as Greg Mayles stated, the team's youth made the team disregard risk. The team also wanted to keep the two-character mechanic, but wanted the characters to be different enough that players would feel forced to swap between them for various obstacles in the game. This is how Dixie came to be. The team wanted a character that could hover or float, and a way they thought they could incorporate that naturally would be creating a character with long hair. So in essence, they took Diddy, slapped a ponytail and a beret on him, and named the character Dixie. Published by, of course, Nintendo, Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Kong Quest would see release on November 21st, 1995 in Japan, December 4th in North America, and December 14th in Europe. Critically, the game was a massive success, with many retailers struggling to maintain stock of the game upon release. It would sell over 5.1 million units worldwide, becoming the 6th best-selling Super Nintendo game overall. Critics loved the game as well, receiving a 90% in aggregate. GamePro gave the game its SNES Game of the Year award, claiming the game was a big improvement over the original. The big sticking point for most critics was how the game's graphics were an improvement over its predecessor, which were already considered a major selling point for the franchise. Since release, Donkey Kong Country 2 has been considered one of the best platformers for the Super Nintendo and, in general, ever made. It was followed up by Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble, a year later, and was ported to the Game Boy Advance in 2004. Additionally, it has been released on pretty much all of Nintendo's online services, with the Wii Virtual Console in 2007, the Wii U in 2015, the 3DS in the year later, and Nintendo Switch in 2020. And that is your brief history of Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest.
Thank you for that brief history, Shane. You know, when creating the schedule for the year of our Lord 2024, I completely forgot that we did a review on Donkey Kong Country. And we were supposed to be talking about that, as that is, you know, the 30-year anniversary of that game this year.
Yeah.
And so I just shifted over. I'm like, ooh, Donkey Kong Country 2. It's going to be a perfect opportunity to talk about that game. And I'm sure we're going to have a great time with it. And just doing research. And the first thing I saw was some people thought that the first Donkey Kong Country was too easy. And Rare listen to them.
Yeah, Rare was like, all right, bet.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't get that either. It's funny because like I was gonna make a comment about that when you were talking about the games you've been playing, where I was just like, it's so weird that they decided, especially like back in the day, not so much now, but when they would bring games over to North America, that it seemed like it was pretty common practice to just like crank the difficulty, as if for some reason they thought North American gamers were like better, or I don't know what the rationale was.
Rentals.
That's a good point. Was rental culture not a thing in Japan? No,
you can't rent games in Japan. No, it's actually, I think it's illegal.
Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense then.
So they would crank the difficulty up here in the United States because they were afraid that, you know, people would just go rent the game and they wouldn't buy it. And so they'd rent it, return it, and you know, fuck off. So we're like, hey, let's just make it artificially more difficult. And I think we've talked about this on localization with Streets of Rage 3.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like the big problem with Streets of Rage 3 is that they improved and they increased. I don't want to say improved. They increased enemy speed and health and just made it insanely more difficult. Just so, you know, game players, which was already a fairly difficult game, wouldn't be able to beat it on a rental weekend. So, yeah, thank you, Blockbuster. I mean, you were an amazing part of our childhood, but you're also why all these ports of American games are torturous. Not the case with Donkey Kong Country 2, though, because that was made in Europe. So they did not increase the difficulty over here for the rental market. It sounds like they just increased the difficulty over Donkey Kong Country to fuck with us. We forget that this is the same company that made Battletoads.
Yes. The game that
we haven't talked about Battletoads.
GameStop employee from like the early to mid 2000s probably has PTSD about now.
Really? GameStop? That's interesting. Why GameStop?
Oh, it was. See, this is how I know that I'm chronically online, because it was a whole thing. Like back in like the mid 2000s, late 2000s, it was a whole thing. It was a sort of a meme that started on 4chan, go figure.
Yep.
Where they would just call GameStops asking for copies of Battletoads just over and over and over again, just to piss off the GameStop employees. Yeah.
It's actually kind of funny. Don't do that. Do not call your GameStop employees are very cool people. Call corporate.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, they'll appreciate it. I guess we better get back to talking about Donkey Kong Country 2. So we start these episodes with our own personal experiences. So I'll take this one first, and I'll say that I think I got Donkey Kong Country 2 when it first came out.
Wow.
I don't remember how far I made it. Yeah, I think I played quite a bit of it. But I don't like have a lot of memories of it. I thought I did. And then when I played it this week, I realized I probably didn't. I have a lot more memories of the first Donkey Kong Country. I might actually have more memories of Donkey Kong Country 3 now that I think about it. I don't know. Like a lot of those pirate stages in this game is very pirate themed. I don't know. They're nostalgic, but maybe they just blend together too much because they're just all throughout the game. But I'm sure we're going to get into that. But I do remember playing it. I don't remember whether or not I loved it. I think all kids thought they loved it back then because the graphics were incredible in 1995. And it was the hotness. You know, no one, I wouldn't say no one, but a lot of people, when did this come out in December? Not everyone had quite gotten their hands on a PlayStation or a Saturn yet. I didn't even know what a Saturn was. And the 32X was out, but again, no one had one of those, and no one had a Jaguar or a 3DO. So this was like the best graphical performance that most people were playing with, and that's kind of what drove that hype. And I was part of that hype machine. So how about yourself, Shane?
I had never played or seen anyone play this game. There you go.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, it's surprising. No, I think you said it. We did do an episode about Donkey Kong Country, right? That's the thing we did.
Yes.
Okay.
3 years ago.
I don't fucking remember. Yeah, there you go. 3 years ago. Okay, that's why I don't remember. Although I do vaguely remember telling the story, so I won't retell it here because that's for that game. Go listen to that episode. But my experience with the Donkey Kong Country series begins and ends with the first one, and I didn't even own it. It was at a friend's house. So like, I just didn't have any real exposure to the DKC like much at all. And I never played this one. And like I said, I don't think I saw anybody play it either. It was totally outside of my purview. So there you go. That's my personal experience. It's fucking riveting. I know.
Oh yeah, man. Well, the good news is, I guess this is just going to keep on moving because we can get into the plot here.
What is the plot writing, Chris?
Donkey Kong, your tie wearing massive gorilla buddy,
yeah,
that we all know and love, who massively changed in the previous game for your pleasure. He has been kidnapped by King K. Rool, who I thought you defeated in the last game. Apparently not. And you start the game on the Gangplank Galleon, which is where King K. Rool was last seen in the first game. So you got to go save Donkey Kong from King K. Rool and his Kremlins. Go get him with your what is it, sister or cousin Dixie? Yeah.
Okay. There you have it.
That pretty much that's the plot, right?
I mean,
no, it's his girlfriend. Not his cousin. I mean, it could be his cousin, but it's his girlfriend.
Oh, okay. I to be fair, I actually didn't know the relationship there either. I could not be fucked to look into it. So glad you cleared that up.
Yeah. Oh, he tries to get the bananas again for some reason.
Always with the bananas.
He doesn't get the bananas.
Oh.
So okay, I look. Yeah. So apparently Donkey Kong's kidnapped on the beach too. So he's not kidnapped on the pirate ship. I don't know how they get to the pirate ship in the beginning of the game, because you know what's weird? And I'm just gonna say I played this on the Wii U. There is no intro cinematic or plot scroll or anything. There's no text crawl. There's nothing explaining anything.
No.
It's just a screen that says Donkey Kong Country 2, press start, and you press start, and you're on a pirate ship.
Yeah, that was very disorienting for me as well. I'm glad it wasn't just me, because it just drops you into it with like zero context. And I guess the assumption is that you played the first one, and therefore this is a continuation of that story. But like, for a minute, I genuinely thought that like I don't even like loaded some other save I didn't know about, or I mean, and for the sake of, transparency, I was playing this on an emulator. So I figured like, oh, maybe my ROM is weird. Like maybe I have something's busted, but no, that's just what happens.
Yeah. You know what? It makes me appreciate the first game a little bit more, because when you go into that little room, when you first start the game and like the room's empty and Donkey Kong's freaking out, you may not know why, But you need to get bananas, and he likes bananas, so maybe he's missing his bananas. Because that's in the manual, so maybe it's assuming you're reading the manual. I still don't know how they got on the stupid ship. But this is the thing I will commend the game for in terms of its plot and writing, because it doesn't really tell any plots really well. Because there's nothing to tell, actually. Is Cranky Kong's writing is superb. And when you go talk to the monkeys at the various locations, their writing is also pretty good. Yeah.
That's fantastic, because obviously in this purely audio format, y'all just have to take my word for it. But in my notes that I wrote for this discussion today, under writing and plot, the only bullet point entry that I put is Cranky Kong is hilarious. That is all. That's my entire take on it.
I mean, that's fairly accurate. I'll be honest, I didn't really pay attention to the other ones. I just paid attention to Cranky Kong. And after a while, I stopped paying attention to him, too.
Yeah, I mean, his dialogue is great. Yeah. It's like super meta, very, very poking fun at themselves as far as like Rare is concerned. And just generally, like, I just really like the sort of like, crotchety characters. And he is definitely that. So I dig it. The other ones are all right. Like, they fit their personalities and everything, but I don't know. I feel like his dialogue is on a different level.
Yeah, and I don't care what the other ones have to say either. They're fairly pointless.
Yeah, true. But yeah, man, that's all I got. Cranky Kong's great, and apparently Donkey Kong got kidnapped. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Plot. All right, so oh man, are you ready for this, Shane?
I mean, I have a whole lot of notes here, so I feel pretty prepared.
Okay, let's get into the gameplay. Go for it.
All right, so let's see. I like to try to take the Oreo sandwich approach of positive, negative, positive. Although in the case of this game, I think it's going to be like an Oreo double stuff, in that it's like positive, a whole shitload of negative, and then positive. But it's fine.
Wouldn't an Oreo be negative, positive, negative?
I mean, how are you associating colors, Chris? I just feel like that's presumptuous.
I'm talking about flavor, Shane.
Okay.
What is this with colors?
What?
Where are we going?
So anyway, the Oreo sandwich cookie approach. So I'm going to start with positive, and that is, or it's at least like lukewarm positivity, I guess. But from a gameplay perspective, the controls I feel are mostly pretty responsive for a platformer, with one exception, and this is more of just a personal thing, I think, but I really disliked the sort of delayed animation when you throw items, because it feels bad. It's like, I expect that when I press a button, a thing's going to happen. And with the throw, it's like an extended animation of a wind up and then the throw. And so you have to like compensate for that when you're aiming the, barrel or treasure chest or whatever it is that you're trying to throw. And it just feels awkward, honestly. But outside of that, I mean, I personally felt like the controls for the game were pretty smooth. I didn't really have too many issues there. I don't know. What was your take on that?
When you're going to run in a game that requires running, and you need to run a lot in this game, and to run, you need to hold down a button, like you expected to. That goes all the way back to the original Super Mario Brothers, where you hold down B and you run. In Super Mario Brothers, when you press B and you have a fire flower power up, you throw a fireball before you start running.
Sure.
But your character doesn't move. Here, if you're at a standstill, which will happen because there's a lot of precise platforming where you have to jump over various enemies or obstacles and land on another platform, and sometimes the timing won't naturally be exactly where it's at. You have to wait for your timing, which will also require you to run. And if you happen to let go of your Y button, because control can be slippery, very slippery, your character will either do a whip attack or a cartwheel, which will cause them to go into forward momentum. and could possibly have you rolling off a cliff or into lava or into spikes or whatever. That kind of goes with your delayed animation thing. It seems like there was a lot of focus on substance and doing all these things in terms of animation as opposed to making things feel good.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. Like, it was more about how things look, which in graphics, I mean, I'll get to that. It's not flawless, but sometimes it doesn't even look that good with the way they try to do things. It actually looks quite awkward. Like they didn't think of a way to do things, which do you think they would have learned because Sonic 2 did that? And I don't want to give praise to Sonic 2. I feel like this episode's going to be a lot like Sonic 2. But everything that I'm getting with this game, it's just that there's a lot of extra movement for the sake of having extra movement, for the sake of having additional animations, for the sake of making things look good. And as such, it doesn't always feel good. That's not to say there aren't times when this game feels fantastic. There are times you can get into a nice rhythm and flow, and you can just, go through a level, and it feels really good when the stage layout is designed perfectly. And there's great examples of this. Like the first couple stages, I think, do it really well. The beehive stages do it fantastically. And there's a few other times when if you just play your cards right, some of the pirate levels where you do a lot of bouncing on enemies and move your way through, or you're shooting through barrels around enemies. Like there are times that feel so good, but other times it just, it feels like crap. I can't explain it. Like it just doesn't feel natural. Too much extra shit for the sake of looking good. And I hate it when games do that.
No, I think that's valid. I do appreciate the fact that so far it seems like your notes and my notes seem to be lining up pretty well, because that is one of the other things that I did point out is that when the level, and I'm going to say this because I think this has a big part of it too, when the level design allows for it, you can get into a really great flow with this game. When things are spaced out correctly and when it's built for that, getting those like consecutive bounces off enemies or items or swinging from the hooks or whatever, like that does, you're right, it does feel real good. I just feel like those experiences are way too far and few between for my liking.
Yes.
I will say that I don't think I felt quite as much of the sort of slippery / floatiness as you did, but I do agree that and I think this probably does factor into my issue with the throwing animation, is that there is more of a focus on like, let's make this like look as good as possible at the expense of the tightness of the controls and the experience, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
On that note, I'm curious, I might have missed something here, but is it just me, or is Dixie just basically superior, like in every way, to Diddy?
The only time where she's not is when there's ropes involved.
Okay. Why? Does she climb slower?
She climbs slower. Like Diddy's into some BDSM or something like that. And
okay.
She's probably the dominant and he's the sub. I don't know. I don't understand S&M. If you're listening, you do, maybe explain it to us. That'd be cool. Maybe not.
It was a great Metallica concert.
Yeah, it was. Rihanna too. It gives me good thoughts. But like there are levels where you're going to have to like climb. Using Diddy Kong makes those levels a lot better because he's so much faster. The problem with those levels where Diddy Kong can shine is you have to know what's there in order to get around it. There's not a lot of natural reaction time.
Nope.
It's more level memorization.
Yep.
And that is like Dixie, when Dixie does her thing, because she can hover and everything else is pretty much better than Diddy, because she can do everything Diddy can do, except she can hover. She just can't climb ropes faster. Woohoo. But, when you're able to hover, you can pretty much bypass a lot of the bullshit in this game, which you're going to probably want to do because there is a lot of bullshit in this game. Enemy placement, like the difficulty curve, looks like a sine wave. throughout like how this game plays out. Sometimes I'm having a great time. I'm like, wow, this is like the first level where they're introducing a new concept. And normally when they do that, like those levels are super easy. And then the very next level is like, okay, you mastered this, right? I'm like, no, I haven't. They're like, yeah, well, fuck you. You're going to learn. And, some people like that. I am not one of them. But even so, using Dixie and knowing where to hover, like significantly drops the difficulty of this game. Now, the game does try to limit this in a way because if Dixie lands on anything, she starts doing like a flip and she can't go back into her hover. So you're pretty much fucked if that you've been leaning on that too hard. But Diddy, as soon as Dixie's done, I'm just like, I'm fucked.
Yeah.
Like this game just got significantly harder. Yeah. It's his conquest. It's his game.
I say, but is it?
Why does he suck?
Is it though? Really? Like, here's the thing. Okay, the reason I asked that is I feel vindicated. I feel validated. All right, I'm not the only one that thinks that.
Yeah.
But the other part of it is, to me, the entire character swapping conceit is just like 100% superfluous. Like, why have it? The only thing I can think of is it's just because of this like adherence to the shtick, the gimmick, because they were like, oh, well, we did this before and we want to keep that because that's like, the calling card of this series now, or part of it, is like, oh, look, you can swap between characters. I think it's a waste of fucking time. Like, you could very easily have sort of re-engineered Diddy such that he can do everything that both of the characters can do and just cut out the second character completely, because stopping in certain sections to do the swap, which again goes back to the unnecessarily long animations. Why the fuck do I have to sit there and watch you do a stupid little kickflip every single time I swap characters? Why don't you just swap places and be done with it? Having to do that in certain areas to accomplish things adds nothing of value to the game whatsoever. It just adds extra seconds that you have to sit there and wait for an animation to finish and extra button presses. It adds nothing. So like, it would have been very easy, in my opinion, as not a game developer, to like go and just consolidate this. It's Diddy's fucking conquest. So just have Diddy do all the things. Like, you can have him float. I don't know. He could pull one of those little monkey balloons out of his ass and he can float like it's a video game. You don't have to adhere to strict logic. Like, it would have worked. And I think that would have been a much smoother, streamlined experience overall without having to do the character swapping. So that's part of why I was kind of getting to that. And your point on things that you can't predict, that is yet another thing that I definitely pointed out, in that there are way too many instances of like gotcha cheap shots in this game that just fucking suck. And it doesn't even come down to player skill at that point, because there's no way it could. There's no telegraph. It's just, fuck you, this just happened. And so it is just pure memorization, which again, kind of sucks. Like a fantastic example of this is the creepy crow boss fight. I hated that. I hated it because like the concept is pretty cool of like, oh, you get to keep scaling up this like ship. So you could, whatever. Imagine it's like a very tall ship mast or something. Fine. Cool. Mm-hmm. I like the verticality of it. And I like that each of the 3 phases of the boss fight, you have to climb higher and higher. That's cool. I like that. What I don't like is when you get to, well, really the second phase, but especially the third one, the climbing section in between, you've got eggs falling from not only the top of the screen, but now flying from the side of the screen with no indication of where they're going to come out. And they move fast enough that if you don't know that they're coming, you're going to get clocked. And I did. And it just feels bad, man. Like, and that's just one instance of this. It happens all over the place.
To counter one point about what you're saying is with the extra character, it does serve as an extra hit point.
Again, you could factor that in though. Okay.
Oh, I get
fine.
that. I get that.
You want 2 hits.
I'm not saying it's worthless.
Put 2 little fucking doodad counters at the top of the screen and be like, oh, you lost a monkey face, but you're still alive. Like, it could have been anything.
No, but I get what you're saying. I do completely understand what you're saying in terms of you don't like the animation. I like the presentation. I like the little details like that. Sometimes I think it's cute when they swap. I can tell you're very frustrated. So am I. But I don't mind the tag team. I don't mind the extra character mechanic. That doesn't bother me. I just wish that Diddy Kong had more to do than climb ropes. That's it.
Yeah.
Like give him give him some sort of like a double jump or something. That would have made things a lot better.
Well, that's actually something I literally wrote that down, is like, that's a thing that they could have done to completely cut out needing Dixie at all. Because like one of the things that happens a lot, right, is like there's certain things you can't reach. So you have to grab the other character and throw them up in the air or something in order to reach it. You could accomplish that same mechanic by just allowing the character to have like a double jump. That's it. There you go. Yeah. You're done.
I'll get to that part in a second, because that leads me to a part about level design, which I'm not happy about. But in terms of the bosses, I actually like almost all of the boss fights, except for one, which was the bee fight with the parrot.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's such a bad boss. That is such a horrible boss.
Like the controls for the parrot are already kind of, it's like bad. It's like a worse version of Flappy Bird, but like things are chasing you.
Oh, I almost probably broke my Wii U on the second to last level of the game, which is a parrot level. Why it's a fucking parrot race.
Mm-hmm.
A parrot race that you don't know. It's a maze, and you're racing a parrot. So you have to know your way through. The best way through, baby. And you're controlling it with the fucking parrot.
This is peak platforming, according to many people.
Okay. Yeah. Peak. So let me. I think there's a level 2 where the wind blows. I don't know if that's this game or not. It might be in one of those levels.
It is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't get to that one. That's probably one of those levels you have to get to when you pay Clubba or whatever in order to get to them, which I didn't have enough items for. And that leads me into my level design. When this is what they were talking about, making more exploration. We were talking about that in our brief history about finding additional stuff like coins and more coins. So they have a banana coin, a pirate coin, and DK coin. Now in the first couple levels, like this is actually pretty fun. It's actually a lot like the original Donkey Kong. They're cleverly hidden, but not like annoyingly hidden. Like if you do all the things right in a level, you can find them all. It's very reasonable. I'm like, okay, cool. But what I continuously find is like there are things in these levels, like where I'm going through the level naturally. Like I'm supposed to have an animal buddy, and I never saw anywhere where I would have an animal buddy. Like where am I supposed to get an animal buddy? The game doesn't naturally lead me to where I'm supposed to get an animal buddy. Obviously, okay, that's a secret. But in terms of how you find these secrets, the way this game does it is bullshit. Like sometimes you have to like literally go down a cliff in order to get to a bonus stage or into a barrel that will shoot you in the direction to get to a bonus stage. And then you have to do like more stuff that does a lot of leaps of faith or just kind of knowing that things are already there. This isn't an adventure game. This is a 2D platformer. This is a novel way to create your levels. This is not a way that I enjoy playing these levels at all. God, I'm so flustered right now. So I'm thinking about like how this game does that. And then like the water levels, sometimes in order to find secrets, you have to know which boxes you can just magically pass through.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's no tell.
I found that out by accident.
It's just some of them, like, yeah, like how it's just like this box is part of the background and you can actually go through it. How am I supposed to know that? And most of these times you're underwater, you're on a timer. So it's not like you're encouraged to explore because you have to jump on the back of a fucking seal to turn lava into regular water. And then you have to get out of the water before you die. Why are you going to be fucking around in that water? So you can find a stupid coin? So you can find your swordfish pal? And the whole entire thing with the animal buddy on your back, with, you know, putting Dixie or Diddy on your back and throwing them, Like, there are times you're going to have to do that to get bonus stages. I get that. But there are times, like, again, you have to throw them in a direction where you have to know exactly where a barrel is. And you could say, well, if you look really closely, you'll get like 10 pixels of a barrel coming out of the top of the screen. Hey, that's great. Why do I have to look for that? Why is this something I constantly have to look for? Or why do I have to, like, hey, there's a wall that has a slight incline. Let me put my partner on my back and throw them in that direction, and hopefully they'll get up there and I'll magically transfer up there and find more hidden goodies and shit. Like, how is this good or fun design? I have to ask that. Like, how is this intuitive?
It's not. I mean, that's like, there were several areas when you have Rambi as your animal companion, which for the record is my favorite of all of them because he's the only one that actually feels halfway decent to use, in my opinion. But
I like the spider.
Yeah,
we'll
spider's
talk about
all
the
right.
animals here, but as we're there,
spider's all right. But yeah, there's several places when you have Rambi where there's like no indication other than it's just a wall that you can charge up and ram into it and break it open to get to a bonus stage. Like there's nothing telling you that. So it feels like the game wants to try to do that thing where it's kind of like the Doom problem where, like, if you want to try to find all the secrets, you inevitably just go face plant every section of wall and just go for like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like that. And as much of a Doom fan as I am, I hate that about it. And I certainly don't like it here either. So, okay. With the bonus stuff, right, and those coins, that kind of leads me into another thing that I really disliked about this, and that is that you can save at the what the hell is it called, like the historical society or whatever, or the school, whatever it is. You can save there, but like it's like a drug dealer. Like the first time is free, and then if you want to save again, it costs you coins to save your game. That's already shitty enough, right? But then, and I wanted to bring this up with you because I want to see if this is something that you encountered, if this is normal, or if this was like some weird quirk of playing this game on an emulator. Every time I saved my game at one of the designated save spots and then came back and loaded it up again later, my banana coin count and my extra life count reset completely.
What?
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
Yeah. Well, that is what happened.
Huh.
So I don't know if that's normal or if that was just some weird experience I had. Yeah. Because that definitely happened, and I didn't know whether to blame the game or if it was just a quirk that I had happen to me, because like let me tell you what, it felt real discouraging to go and load up a save game and be like, oh, I'm back down to the stock amount of extra lives and all of my banana coins are gone now. That seems kind of pointless for me to have spent all that time trying to collect them.
Now, to be fair, I never loaded a save up.
Okay.
Because I kept creating a restore point.
Yeah. Oh, right. Because you were playing it on the Wii U.
On the Wii U. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was playing it, I mean, I would have done that on my emulator, but there was something wonky going on with the menu in my emulator, and it wouldn't allow me to load save states. And I didn't really have the patience to go figure out what was wrong with it. So I was like, well, you know what? Maybe this is just a reason for me to try to play this game more legit. So I will use the in-game save system. And that's what I got out of it. So you know what? Maybe some listener can verify this or deny it, but that is what happened. And it feels real bad, especially when you need those banana coins to like save more than just once at a certain spot. Or if you want to use them to like unlock the hints or whatever that they give you. But it just, God, there's so many design decisions here that I'm like, why? Like, why? Like, why even have specific save points? Frankly, why even have that? Like, especially in a game that is purposefully more difficult, and a lot of the levels, especially the further in you go, feel less like enjoyable romps through a stage and more like grueling fucking gauntlets, just wars of attrition. Why would you have extremely limited save locations where it's like if you don't get there, you have to replay like a handful of these stages all over again.
The worst part about it, and I look, I can understand it to a degree, and this was something that games were kind of doing at the time. But that does not mean it's aged well at all. I don't like it. Crash Bandicoot did this, and it was bullshit. I think we complained about it there. The original Donkey Kong Country did this. I thought that was bullshit there. In a way, Super Mario World does this. You can only save once you get done with the castle. The game we talked about last week, you can only save after every time you go to Donkey Kong. Defeat Donkey Kong in a boss level. All this stuff is very kind of normal for the time. What pisses me off most about it is something you mentioned, is the fact that the first save is free at a save location, but every save after that costs banana coins. That's horse shit.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing that pisses me off is that after you defeat a boss, there's no autosave.
No.
So you have to defeat a boss and either go back into the level and spend coins to save your game, and then I guess face the boss again to go to the next stage. I don't know. I didn't try it. I didn't want to find out. All I knew is that the game did not allow me to save after the boss, which makes no sense. Why? I'm going to be too angry. I got to calm down. And then you have to go through some stages in the beginning. And sometimes these stages are too long. They're just too long. And it's not that maybe they're like too long inherently, like they're not too unfair. Well, they are too unfair at some points, but like sometimes these levels would take me like 10 minutes to get through, and 10 minutes doesn't sound like a long time, but in a 2D platformer where it's constantly throwing bullshit at you. And it got to a point once where I was like, this feels like the natural ending point of the level. And it gets me to a halfway mark after I collect the O in Kong. I'm like, I just want this level to be over. I'm so ready for this level to be over. And this happened particularly in the later stages. And while that's happening, and you're trying to make it to a save point, or maybe you're having problems finding those banana coins so you can go back and save again, which admittedly wasn't too much of a problem. It's so irritating. And look, the game, to its credit, does give you a ton of lives for as much as it's going to make you die. You can get tons and tons and tons of extra lives. It's not hard to do that. I think you can even get them from like a trivia game that you can go to when you talk to one of the monkeys.
It costs coins.
Yeah, which does cost coins. But then again, I mean, you can farm coins if you really want to.
Sure.
I don't recommend it, but you can. You can travel to different levels, I guess, so you can get the coins from exploring, like the DK coins you're going to need for the end of the game, or you're going to need to get to the special levels. They'll give you the special ending for the end of the game, which I couldn't be bothered to fuck with. There's those things that are in the world, but overall, it's just it feels like it's fighting the player on every step of the way.
Yeah, I mean that was actually my take on playing with the animal companions, is that I felt like Rambi and actually you made a good point with the spider. I don't even know what the spider's name is.
Spider
legs, let's say. I don't know. He's wearing tennis shoes, but anyway, that one's all right. But for the most part, it feels like they're not fun to play as. Like you would think that something like that would be like a fun addition to a level where it's just like, oh, this is, to me, like those kind of things are like, oh, this is going to make me feel kind of overpowered a little bit. Like this is like it's a power up, right? So it should feel extra good to play as. And by and large, they just don't. And then in a lot of cases, just the way that the companion functions, you kind of feel like you're fighting against how the animal companion controls to have a good time, especially with the parrot. I fucking hate that thing.
Yeah, the parrot's awful. Like the parrot you think is good because it can kill bees, and then you try to control it. I also noticed that the hit detection with the animal companions is not always consistent.
No,
or it doesn't
not.
feel consistent.
No, I definitely got murked by some of those like bitey fish on a few occasions because I thought I was going to do a swordfish nosedive slam, and instead it just took a fish to the monkey face.
Yeah, I had a problem with the starfish that launched themselves at you. Or when I was Rambi the rhino, there'd be times that I thought I would jump on an enemy and it would say it was a hit, and then there was times I thought it would come from underneath the enemy, and I would actually jump on them, which was the most prevalent in the level where we were trying to run away from the bee.
Ah, yes.
And I'm like, oh great, I thought I jumped on you, or the momentum would be kind of weird. So instead of jumping forward, you keep jumping up, instead of moving forward, which in that level was particularly irritating. Yeah, the momentum is kind of wonky as well. It's hard to describe.
Yeah.
I think we've really gotten to the core of this. Is there really anything more you want to add to this? I think we've discussed our frustrations with this game pretty much as we can.
Yeah, I mean, well, like I said, in the spirit of the Oreo, I'm going to end this on a positive note. So I actually thought that having like a ton of these hidden bonus stages was a pretty cool idea. I'm not in love with how they presented them, kind of like, as you mentioned, like some of them are just real hard to even know that they exist, but I like that they're there. And if you do find them, I do actually really appreciate that the game allows you to essentially retry them as many times as you want. It's not like that was one of my fears going into the game when I found like my first bonus areas. I was like, oh shit, if I fuck this up, like, is it closed off? Like, am I not going to be able to get this coin? And no, it drops you pretty close to wherever the entrance was to the bonus level anyway. And you can just go back and try it again as many times as you want. So that's nice. I do appreciate that at the very least.
Yeah, actually, I like the bonus stages. I think the bonus stages were solid throughout the game. Yeah. I thought they were all good. I thought they were all really well designed and well crafted. So, and I loved them. There you go. There's my Oreo.
Yay. Okay, I don't have an Oreo for the next one though.
No, not the graphics.
Nope, I don't.
Oh no, I think we're gonna differ on this. I'm gonna start off, since you started off on the gameplay. I'm gonna start off the graphics. I'm gonna say I think they look okay. I think they look fine. I think they get in the way of the gameplay. I think the focus on the graphics actually made the game worse in terms of how it controls and how it feels and everything that we just talked about. But I think in terms of how the actual game looks, I think it looks fine. Backgrounds kind of look shitty. I think like they're super low res, especially when you go into the monkey rooms. And I like that the monkey rooms have like attention to detail, like the Kong family. They have all these like little trinkets throughout, all these little callbacks, all these references to other Nintendo franchises, rare franchises, sometimes taking pot shots at other franchises like the Sonic shoes, and I think Crash Bandicoot at one of the like the very end screen that shows how well you're doing. Like that stuff. That stuff's cool. I think like, but the backgrounds definitely in those areas where they're trying to be more detailed, they definitely show their age. But overall, I actually think they look fine.
Okay. So my take on it, and is this a hot take? I don't know. I don't mean it to be, but, and this, to be fair, this might completely contradict everything I said in the Donkey Kong Country episode. I'm not sure. Been too long. I'm a different person now, but I don't feel like I've ever genuinely liked the DKC art style, just like in general. And I've been trying to like pin that down because it like it seems novel, right? And at the time, particularly with the first game, it was kind of unprecedented, right? And so it was like, holy shit, this is amazing. It's like 3D, but kind of not. But the thing is, like, stylistically, it just feels messy or cheap. It's like playing a claymation animation, but somehow less cool. Like it's like less cool than Clay Fighters. Like I think it's because the graphics for me like exist in this weird purgatory, like between the more like clean polygonal lines of true 3D and the very detailed and like sort of vibrant sprite work of true 2D. And so it's in this just in between no man's land where it's like, it feels like it's the worst of both worlds to me. Like all you're getting is like this weird, muddy kind of pixelated 3D ish sprite. and I just don't like it. I don't know. I've never liked it. And I think what also doesn't help is that I just generally don't like a lot of the character designs either. Like, I don't know what it is, man. I think that's the best way I can describe it. Is it just that existing like in this weird in between space. And I just feel like it suffers on both fronts. Like, I don't think it does the best of both worlds. Like, I think it actually is worse off for it.
I could see that. I'm also not a fan of pre-rendered graphics, and this is not like my preferred way of looking at things. I definitely think a more sprite-based approach looks a lot better, especially as things have aged. In 1995, this looked phenomenal.
Sure.
This was, as I said earlier, this was cutting edge, and this blew our minds. Going back, would I rather have this or, Super Mario World or Sonic the Hedgehog? I can tell you, definitely not this. This I think has aged the worst.
Maybe it's gimmicky.
Out of them, but like
maybe that's what I'm looking for.
It's very gimmicky. It's very gimmicky. It's trying to find a way to, because the Super Nintendo couldn't do obviously what the PlayStation or Saturn could. And so they were trying to find a way to extend the console's life while the N64 was getting ready for launch. We all know this now.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't have every game look like Star Fox. It's expensive to put an FX chip in there. This is probably a cheaper method of doing so. And everyone wants 3D. They want the future of gaming. And this is the closest that Nintendo could give us. Now, we didn't appreciate the way that Yoshi's Island 2 looks as much as I don't really care for that game. Maybe I would if I went back and played it. But that game looks just utterly amazing. But here it looked fine in 95, but much like a lot of the games that blew our minds in 95, everything else that wasn't doing this looks so much better. And I'll even say that. But I look at some of the enemy sprites that are going on here. Like, as much as I hate the bee fight, I think the bees look really good. I think the enemy sprites that aren't gremlins look really good. I think they do look good. I think it is very muddy. This game's very dark. It's not colorful. And maybe they could say, oh, well, they're like, it's a pirate and there's a lot of storms and stuff like that. Well, yeah, I could have appreciated something brighter. And like even the original Donkey Kong opened up with a very bright and colorful scenery. And I think and I still don't think that game has aged well at all either. But at least like I can look at that and be like, yeah, I can still kind of get it. Here it's I think it looks fine overall. I think they played into their strengths. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if it's not sprites they're going on right here, or even like I'd take mode 7 scaling over what I'm seeing here today.
Mm-hmm.
It just hasn't aged the best. I'll 100% agree with you there.
Unfortunately not. But that's honestly, that's really all I have to say on the graphics front. I don't know. I really couldn't get into it.
But let's complete another Oreo sandwich, I guess. Because is it really a sandwich? Yeah, I guess. That's what I said, I guess. What do we think of the music sound here? I guess I'll kick this one off. It's good. The music's good. It's not as good as I remember it.
And it's there.
Yeah. That's, you know what? That's actually something that surprised me is I'm glad I picked the original Donkey Kong Country as the superior soundtrack on our top 5 SNES soundtracks, because I think I was thinking of this more based off reputation. I think the first one's better.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's better. It's a lot better. This game is fine. It's not bad. It's still David Weiss. He's doing a great job, but like the first one was better. And if I'm being honest, it's again, it's not bad. It's still good, but it's unremarkable. And a lot of tracks repeat.
True. And so my issue with this is like, you're right. The music itself, like compositionally, is not bad. And when it's there, and I'm going to get to what exactly that means here in a second, but when it's there, it slaps. Like, it's good. It's that DKC that you're expecting. You got the bongos, you got the monkey sounds, you got it all. Sounds pretty good. Problem is, for me, is that a lot of these levels felt like hollow. They feel hollow and empty. And I was trying to figure out what it was making me feel that, because it was a very like off-putting thing. And I think it's because the ambient music is too often so subtle that it's like noticeably absent. And in a game like this, when it's an action platformer, it should have an ever-present musical score, right? To kind of like keep that energy up. Now, I don't usually advocate for that, because there are plenty of times on this show where I've said time and time again that the proper use of silence is often better than music. And I stand by that. But in this type of a game, I expect there to be a bopping soundtrack most of the time. And it doesn't, not that it even needs to be like super amped, extreme high energy, but there needs to be something constant going on to keep that feeling going. And there are a lot of levels where like the backing track is almost completely gone, and all you're left with is just the sound effects of jumps and the grunts of enemies getting knocked out and barrels breaking. And it feels oddly hollow. And I don't like it. It feels weird for a game like this.
I will say it's quieter. I mean, there's something on every level, but if you want to say it's quieter, I would tend to agree with that.
Yeah.
But there is something every single time.
No, there is, but that's the point, is that I feel like, you know what, maybe I'll walk back a little bit of what I said earlier, in that it's compositionally sound, because maybe it's not. Like I feel like there were some decisions here where, yes, the music is there if you listen for it, but like I shouldn't have to purposefully be like, hold on, let me listen for where the music is at on this stage. Like it's extremely quiet in some places, and in certain games that can be used to a really great effect. Here, not quite so much. It just feels off. And speaking of those sound effects that you definitely hear because they are 10 times louder than the music in some places, don't like them. I, by and large, actually really dislike, and I don't say this often. I can't think of another time off the top of my head where I said I genuinely dislike the sound design of a game, but this is one of them. And part of it is recycling. That's part of it, because there are several different enemies, completely disparate types of enemies, I might add, that have the same sound when you kill them. That's weird. Also, I just don't like that sound clip at all. And those little gator dudes that like are all chompy, dude, that chomping sound effect, that like the sound of molar hitting molar is like, it's like viscerally off-putting to me. Like when I hear it, I'm just like, like I don't know, man. I don't want to be like super down on a game, but I'm finding a hard time like trying to come up with anything, because there's just so many things.
So I'm going to disagree with you hard on this one. I think the sound effects are great.
We need a balance.
I think look great. Yeah, I think they sound fine. I think they sound perfectly acceptable, especially for a 16-bit Super Nintendo game. I think they sound just fine. I like the chompy chomp sounds. Thank you. I like the when they die. I like that. I like the when you have the condor that sweeps down. I like that too. I really like it. I think the only thing I don't really care for is probably the snake jumping, just because I don't like the snake. But I think all the I think the sound effects are great. I think they're perfectly acceptable at the very least. I think they are I don't want to say the height of the sound design here, because some of these tunes in here are really, really good. Ambience and scene fitting and everything like that, even though I think they are quieter. And I don't like the fact that each level doesn't have an identity and audibly. I think that's a big problem. But in terms of the sound effects, I think they're fine. I think they're really good. I even like the way the monkeys sound.
All right, there you go. We
disagree on the sound.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Bring a different perspective. That's good. I think the game needs it at this point. I just I don't know, man. Those sound effects just rub me the wrong way.
But speaking of people who rub us the right way with different perspectives, we have our Patreon pontifications. How can you get your pontification read on our show? Well, it's rather easy. I'm going to make it sound way too complicated here, though. First, go to patreon.com/retrohangover and become a patron for as little as $1 a month. Join our Discord server. Go to the Patreon pontifications channel. Yeah, we're a server. Go to the Patreon pontifications channel and type your thoughts on an upcoming game, which will be displayed there. And all of our patrons that we're about to read off here gave their thoughts on Donkey Kong Country 2 for this week, and we will begin reading them now, starting out with Matt, aka Stormageddon, from the Fun and Games podcast, Screen Snark, and Reignite, among others. And they say, I never thought they'd be able to top the original Donkey Kong Country. And then we got Diddy's Conquest. Better characters, better levels, more incredible music. Of the original DKC trilogy, this one is easily my favorite. Nothing tops it till we get to the Donkey Kong Return games. I'm sorry, Matt.
Yeah, I think we're going to be saying that a lot, actually. All right. Next on the list is Alt, who says, I first played DKC 2 in a hotel room where you could rent games to your room's TV. I remember that. The game hooked me despite only getting a taste, as I never owned a Super Nintendo. I still haven't gone back to it, as I worry that memory and feeling will disappear if I do. But I remember liking it a bit more than one due to the partner actions and the hair gliding. I will hopefully get around to it sooner rather than later. Well,
maybe you hope you won't.
Yeah, I see. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we're not going to sway you one way or the other. Who knows?
I will say, based off the tasting games that you have in our server, Alt, maybe put this one on the shelf for a bit. Just saying. Keep those positive thoughts in your memories. I don't want to discourage you. Maybe you will like it. Go give it a shot. Who am I to say? All right. Moving on to Lunchbox, aka the Disgruntled Gamer, who has the Thunderdome Gaming Society YouTube channel. And he says, I was skeptical when this first released, as I was like, what can top DKC 1? When I received DKC 2 for Christmas and fired it up, I was blown away. Everything about it was improved over the previous game, which is a feat in and of itself. I loved this game. Only knock against it is you can't play as DK. So I'm fine with that. It's definitely in my top 5 Super Nintendo games. And I know Lunchbox, aka the Disgruntled Gamer, you love the tough as nails, hard games, and you're probably thinking to yourself, Shane and Chris are a bunch of pussies. And we might be. That might be a problem. But I'm glad that you like it.
All right. Next up, we have the one and only Dischimera of the Game Over Hell YouTube channel, who says, I played Donkey Kong Country 2 when I was a kid, as a rental. I remember never liking it anywhere near as much as the first because I found it way too hard, to the point I couldn't make it past the second level of the lava area. I was also disappointed Donkey Kong wasn't playable, but some weird monkey with blonde hair was. Nowadays, I don't dislike the game or the characters, but I just never took the time to play much past the levels I played as a kid. One thing I learned to appreciate a lot, despite not progressing deep in the game, is the music. It's fantastic. Also, I'm almost sure this game awakened the scaly in some people because of its abundance of beefcake lizards in skimpy attire. That's probably fair. Yeah.
There's probably some truth to that. All right. On to Soha, who has the Soha Y0 YouTube channel. And Soha says, I grew up playing the first DKC. It was amazing. I only really got around to DKC 2 when I was a teenager and messing around with emulators. And I gotta say, DKC 2 is just so much better than DKC 1. The level design is a massive step up. Overall level gimmicks and theming is top notch. Bonus within levels actually require you to do the thing properly this time around and aren't hidden behind some unassuming wall like in the first game. What?
I'm sorry, okay. What now?
The bosses are better, the challenge is better, the soundtrack is better, and man, what a great game. And I say this even back when I played this on ZSNES, and the emulator would not stop rotating my barrels in one of the secret world levels where you ride those barrels for pretty much the entire half of it. It's just that good.
I don't.
Sorry, so
I don't think we've ever had this much of a gulf between our community take on a game and how we feel about it.
Yeah. We're in trouble.
All right. Next up is JC, who says, no surprises here, but I do love Rare's releases for Nintendo's 16-bit home console, and both Killer Instinct and the OG DKC blew my mind when I first saw them. It just didn't seem possible they were running on a Super Nintendo, and I believed they could not be improved. And then Rare released Diddy's Conquest. It just improved in pretty much every way from what the OG offered, while remaining challenging and addictive at the same time, all capped off with the very typical Rare/British sense of humor. In my humble opinion, this is a perfect example of how to develop a sequel.
Well, good news for you is that next time we're doing Killer Instinct.
Hey, there you go.
Hey, can't wait for that one. Next is Adam, and thank you, JC. And go check out JC over on Instagram. He does fantastic artwork, especially his Fist of the North Star artwork. It's great. Next is our Australian friend, Adam, from the Good, the Bad, and the Backlog podcast, who says, DKC2 was the first SNES game I ever played. It came bundled with our SNES, and I remember waking up on a Saturday morning to a brand new Super Nintendo in our lounge room and playing it with my sister. It was kind of mind-blowing at the time, but it became clear later on the only reason my mother bought it was because my parents had split up and Mom wanted us to prefer living with her because she had the Nintendo. Donkey Kong Country 2 is childhood trauma. Thank you, Adam.
That might be the first take I can agree with. Oh, God. All right. Next up is Randall with possibly one of the shortest pontifications. Shortest pontification I have about DKC2, and that is they really don't make platformers like they used to. Still a staple and feels incredibly unique even today.
Unique is a word.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Last here is Keith of the late Main Quest podcast, also part of King of Games 1996, as was Adam. Adam, one of our hosts. I do need to point that out. And Keith says, I never really gave the Donkey Kong Country series a real chance. I bought the first game when it came out because there was a ton of hype surrounding it, and it just never made sense as a platformer to me. It just never felt good, and all the great movement was saddled with Diddy, who was ultimately too weak to do anything. The graphics were impressive for a SNES title, but aged pretty rapidly as tech moved on. Anyway, you want to know my thoughts on Donkey Kong Country 2, and I rented it for a week and hated it as much as Donkey Kong Country. Also, I don't like pirate-themed things. It was weird looking at crocodiles and pantaloons. I haven't returned to the series since.
I knew there was a reason I liked you, Keith.
I'd like your take. Yeah. I'd like the cut of your jib.
Pirate reference.
He didn't like that reference. All right. So I guess that concludes our patron pontifications. Thank you, patrons. We deeply do appreciate it. Once again, if you want to become a patron, head on over to patreon.com/retrohangover or check it out in our link tree. And you can support us there, once again, for as little as $1 per month. I guess this is where we are coming to the end of the episode. Shane, do you want to go first? You want to let me go first? Which one of us is going to give our thoughts on this just entirely well-renowned Super Nintendo platformer?
Oh God. Yeah, sure. I'll take the bullet first. Why not?
Hooray.
Yeah. No, not. Man. Okay. Is it playable? Yes. Like, are there some parts of it where it is truly genuinely enjoyable? Also, yes. I didn't hate my experience with it the entire time, but I think this is one of those deals, and especially since this whole section here, right, is whether or not it holds up today, not was it amazing in the 90s. And does this hold up now? Not really. I don't think so. There are so many better platformers, I almost said 2D platformers. Technically, I guess that's this, but the pseudo 3D kind of throws a wrench in things in my brain. But anyway, plenty of other platformers, especially like the newer generation of them that just do the formula so much better and do so much more interesting things than this, and also look better too. Like, and of course I feel like that's somewhat of an unfair comparison, saying like, oh yeah, that like sprite-ified 3D model doesn't look as good as the, you know, crisp artwork from a game in like the 2010s or whatever. Like, okay, fair. But if you're going to go and play a platformer, you have so many better options. Like, fucking go play Shovel Knight if you want to talk about one of the best platformers ever made. That's a fucking incredible game. And you're going to have, in my opinion, a much better time. I just don't, in this year of 2024, as we are recording this episode, I just don't feel like DKC2 really puts enough on the table to justify spending the time to play it. I just really don't. I think there's a lot of archaic stuff in here that we've covered at length that are really going to detract from the experience in a way that will probably make you just want to stop playing it. And the thing is, it's not even that long of a game. Like, if you blast through the whole thing, you can reasonably get it done in, and I'm being kind of generous with this, but like 3 to 6 hours, depending on how long you take. But it's not a long game. But even then, there were too many places here where I just felt like it was a chore, and it's unfortunate, but that's kind of where I stand with it. So please send all your hate mail to not me.
Yeah, send us all the hate mail. I love the hate. Give me the hate.
There you go. Send it to Chris.
Great. I'll take it. I'm going to also say no. Sonic 2 is better. Let me elaborate more on that. That's not exactly what I want to put on there. But I mean, in all honesty, yeah, I think Sonic 2 is better. Sonic 3 is better. So when Shane's like, it's not exactly fair to compare it to other things, the sprite based stuff. I understand those are also sprite based games, but they are the game's contemporaries. They are the games that this game was competing against directly in the same space. And it, like, just as a console war sense, just because the Sega Genesis against the Super Nintendo, like, that's what was going on here. And I think the reason so many people remember this game fondly is because of the graphical capabilities that this game could produce. Now, if you came back to this game much later and played it and you liked it, hey, this is just a game for you. You like more difficult platform games. This game is a difficult platform game. I just think there are better difficult platform games that offer a fairer challenge and still can be more challenging. I think this game leans into more archaic ways of doing things. Now, there's two things I do have to take into consideration here. One is this game is not meant to be beaten within 5 hours or with save states, as me and Shane both did. Shane did load up saves, of course, but I'm sure that you use save states, I have to assume. Correct, Shane?
Well, no, that's the thing. I didn't actually, because my load save state functionality was borked. So like I ended up just I raw dogged this thing, man. I played it with the OG save system.
Oh God. Anyway, so I really need to put that in perspective. That yes, was I trying to brute force my way through this game? That probably requires a little bit more finesse. That does require me to memorize levels. That does require me to do these things. Okay, yeah, sure. I'll 100% take those concessions. But I think while doing so, I have played games where I've had more fun trying to get through levels. This game just feels like it was brutally punishing for the sake of being brutally punishing, but not exactly showing you the exact best way that you could get through a level. It took a lot of experimentation. And again, people will like that. I don't. And I actually think that when you go back to it, the graphical design, which was this game's primary hook, gets in the way of the gameplay. And you never want that to happen. I think when there's an overall stress on graphics, that's your key feature, and it gets in the way of the game will suffer. And I think Donkey Kong Country 2 definitely suffered here for it. And this it's even applies to modern gaming. If there's a heavy focus on doing frames of animation or being the most graphically impressive game that you can be, and let's be honest, graphics sells, then years down the road, that game is not going to age as well as the contemporaries that focused more on gameplay and level design. And I think it does definitely suffer. Once again, Sonic 3 is better. Super Mario World is better. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is better. And if you've been listening to the show, you know I am a Sonic 2 hater. So for me to say that actually pains me quite a bit. I had more fun with that game. And if the entire point of a game like this is to have fun, then for me, Donkey Kong Country 2 failed. And so I'm going to have to say no. It does not hold up today. I know this is sacrilegious. I know this is insane hearing it from both of us that we don't believe it, but that's where we're at. And that's our opinion. I know I apologized earlier to some of our Patreons because of course, but I'm not going to apologize for me saying I do not like this game. I don't want to come back to it. I do want to try the more modern Donkey Kong games because they're more in lines with the graphical capabilities of the time. They weren't trying to be stunning. They seem like they're more focused to try and be on good games. But I think it makes me kind of want to look back and question with a lot of these rare games of the time. It seems like every single time we go back to them, they don't hold up. Is Rare as prolific as a developer or as profound of a developer as everyone says they were, or did they just make pretty games? I think that needs to be a question that people need to start asking, because a lot of these games, a lot of these Rare games, you go back and play them and it's like, it's fatally flawed. And I know I'm going to catch shit for that because a ton of people love the Donkey Kong Country games. They do. And they're going to say, no, I'm wrong because these games are great. I don't think so. I don't think so. And I think that carried over when Rare was bought by Microsoft and all of a sudden they're just dropping stinkers, probably because they didn't have a fucking furry animal starring in it. Sorry. They didn't have a mascot you recognize, so now all of a sudden the game sucks. Mini rant over. I think it's time to close this one down.
Why would you say something so bold, so controversial? Oh, well, all right. There we go. The slaughter has come to an end. We await the inevitable backlash. I will be grabbing a thing of popcorn and watching the Discord in the coming days. But at any rate, if this happens to be the first time that you've come to the show and you are still here, then congratulations. And we're glad that you stuck around. We hope you enjoyed the episode. We do have a whole lot more for you. And you know what? Even if you have been listening to the show for a while, there's a good chance that maybe you haven't gone and checked out our burgeoning backlog as it grows with every release. It's an inescapable monstrosity that will soon devour us all. And we invite you to go and check it out. Just surrender to your backlog overlords. That, along with our Patreon that we've mentioned already, and the merch store where you can pick up some sweet shirts and cool stuff like that, as well as our YouTube channel, our Twitch streams, our socials, all that good stuff. It's all in one place. Just go to the Linktree/Retro Hangover. That's where you got to go. That's where you find all the stuff. It's all you need to know. There you have it. On that note, one more quick sort of shout out, because we are getting pretty close to the end at this point. But if you do still want to get in early before it goes to the main feed, our King of Games 1996 tournament is still going on the Patreon feed right now, and you can get in on that for as little as $1. It's a pretty low bar of entry. The price of admission is not insurmountable, and with that, you get not only access to King of Games 96, but a whole bunch of other bonus content that it's just not heard outside of Patreon. That's where you got to go. You get in on the exclusive bonus material, and there's a lot of it. Most of it is Chris, because he is more prolific than I am, but it's there and it's pretty good if we do say so ourselves. So please feel free to check that out. And with that, Chris, would you like to give a quick plug for for what we do over on the Twitch.
Yes, and before I do, I just realized Star Fox 64 is made by Rare, so that's a good game. But if you want to, maybe Banjo-Kazooie is too. I've never played it. Conquer sucks. But if you head on over to twitch.tv/retrohangover, you can see us playing a game and maybe having fun with it, maybe not, maybe playing with horny waifus, killing each other in bullet hell. Never know what's going to be over on the Retro Hangover stream. Ho to you over at Retro Hangover. No, twitch.tv/Retro Hangover. We hope to see you there at Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Sunday stream, 9 p.m. Eastern time, twitch.tv/Retro Hangover. Back over to you, Shay.
Alrighty. Well, I do believe with all of that now having been said, until next time,
play with your whip your hair back and forth joysticks.
And was ported to the Game & Boy. Let's start that one over. And was ported.
Game & Boy.
The Game & Boy. Shane here with a quick message. You know, the one rule Chris and I have always gone by regarding advertisements is this. It has to be something we use and can personally vouch for. If you know me, you know I love coffee. And Bones Coffee Company has been my go-to for home brewing for quite some time now. Their small batch beans come in an impressive variety of flavors like Mint Invaders from Chocolate Space, or Electric Unicorn, which I swear tastes exactly like Fruity Pebbles. And the best part? No added sugar or calories involved, just natural flavors infused right into the beans themselves. Build your own sample pack of 5 4-ounce bags to find out which flavors speak to you, or jump in head first with full 12-ounce bags. They've even got K-Cups. Step up your homebrew game with Bones Coffee by visiting bit.ly/RHPBones. That's bit.ly/RHPBONES.